No, of course your health is serious. The reason I did this was to make people take the right things seriously and give you tools to see what, isn't going to help you. A lot of people stand to profit off you taking the wrong things really seriously. So I'm just trying to cut through those narratives.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the show. I got an incredibly amazing response on the last coaching call episode, so I am so thankful for that. And if you're getting value from these episodes, please leave a review, especially if you're on iTunes. My website is in the description as well. Again, thank you all. I can't believe that this show is growing the way it is. It's crazy to me, but I really do appreciate it, more than you know. Today, I want to talk about what level of coaching you may need for your goals. This is a question that I get asked a lot from people that I don't know much about, and it's very hard to answer. So I thought I would kind of break down the different types of goals that people may have and what you may need from a coach in order to achieve them. I broke it down kind of from basic beginner to like international competitor. I think that when most people initially join a gym or begin looking for a coach, they are a beginner. There are outliers. There are totally people at top levels with no coach and they've never had one, and that's amazing. But we're going to kind of talk general, right? Most of the time situations. Let's kind of dive in. You're brand new to fitness. When you are brand new to fitness, you just need a coach that knows what they're talking about. I genuinely and wholeheartedly believe this. I think the biggest problem that I see, and I'll be brutally honest with you, when somebody comes in and they have not worked out in years or they're brand new altogether and they have every supplement, they have brand new shoes, they have all the apparel, they have all of these accessory things, all of the peripherals, but they have kind of no interest in learning any of the basics. I think sometimes you need a coach to let you know where you're really at instead of just kind of going with it yourself and trying to figure out the pecking order on your own. And by pecking order, that doesn't necessarily mean like how good you are at fitness or anything to that extent. It's more so just you can't drive a race car before you have your basic license. That is something that a lot of people try to do. They end up discouraged, obviously. Then they're out of fitness, like altogether. It's completely done. After you have a coach that knows what they're talking about, you want to ensure that when you're picking that coach, they either have multiple recommendations. You can go off of their certifications. However, I wouldn't say that's completely black and white. I would also ask them who they've worked with. We'll go into this a little bit more later in the episode, but you don't want somebody that is only training super military-esque people that really need to go into special forces and things of that nature if you're brand new and you really prefer a soft coaching style. Make sure that your coach is knowledgeable. They are going to keep you safe. They're going to give you some good direction, but they're also the type of coach that you need. And when you're brand new, the basics are everything. I have gone back and reworked the basics 100 times because I was definitely one of the people that dove in way too fast and I just wanted to try everything and I wanted to do everything. And I didn't master a lot of these foundational aspects of fitness and I looked like a jackass because I was putting a lot of weight over my head, but I was moving like an asshole. It's very obvious, especially to people that have a trained eye, to people that have been in the industry a long time. It's very obvious when someone didn't do the basic work. You don't want to be that person. You want to move well. You want to prevent that injury. You want to have that foundation set so when you build your house on top of it, it doesn't crumble. For a lot of beginners, I also recommend some sort of group environment. And that doesn't necessarily have to be like a CrossFit class per se. It could be any group fitness class. It could be having a friend that goes with you and is actually going to go and actually keep you accountable. A lot of people get hooked on fitness because of the social aspect, and that is sometimes framed as a negative thing. I don't think it is at all. I know a lot of my gym members are there because they have friends there. Maybe they wouldn't still be there if they didn't come and see their friend, or their friend is asking where the hell they were because they didn't show up to class. It's definitely in our human nature to want to be accepted by the people around us. If we have this group dynamic, a lot of times you will get discouraged at some point in the beginning. That can help you push through that. Whereas otherwise as you may not have if there was no one kind of asking what the fuck you're doing and why aren't you in class and where are you? It's a really good dynamic to create. It creates pressure, but not from a negative aspect. And I think that's really, really important. So now we kind of go to the local competitor level. You're competing for fun. You still have a life. You have priorities that are far above your fitness priorities. And, if your kid's school called, you would go pick them up instead of hitting your workout. This is you. I know, of course, like anybody would go pick up their kid, right? Sure. But would a professional athlete leave their practice to pick up their kid? No, they would probably call someone else to do it. That is not me telling you to not pick up your sick kid from school. That's not this at all. What I am saying is that you do have to recognize that the people you're idolizing may have different priorities than you do. And they likely have people that handle things like kids, things like their finances, whatever it is for them, because this is their job. Kind of check yourself and check where it actually falls on the priority list. And then you can kind of decide what sort of local competitor you want to be. Are you a person that wants to win local competitions, but you don't really care to go farther than that? Or are you going to the local competition so that you can have beer after with your friends, which is, again, totally fine. You likely want to have at least some one-on-one direction at this point if you are competing and you do want to take it at least semi-seriously. Most people at this level just need to work on what they're bad at. You may not even know what you're bad at. That is a really big disconnect. You might think your squat is great. Then someone else comes in and tells you that you have never once squatted with your legs. I'm not at all speaking from personal experience. No. But my point is we can all turn our blinders on when we're talking about the things that we really need to work on the most, because it's not fun to work on the shit you're bad at all. It's not fun. And it doesn't make you feel crazy confident and give you that great feeling. You're bad at it. That's the reason you have to work on it. But having that one-on-one direction is going to give you a way to work on those things that's conducive to your goals, while also doing it in an appropriate way so that you are actually improving on it. You're not just spending time doing something that's not really bringing you much happiness. If you are on the higher end of the local competitor, you also are probably going to want help planning your season. And this was something that I had no idea I really needed help with until someone did it for me. And it was so much easier to plan out my year, plan out weigh-ins and different things like that. It's incredibly stressful to try to think about when you'll be ready for things. And if you can have someone do that for you that is writing your program and actively involved, it makes things a lot easier. And this is probably the most broad level. There's a lot of different types of people that want to compete locally and have fun with it. In general, I would say if you care really at all about the competition aspect of it, you need some one-on-one attention, whether that is an individually designed program, whether that is private sessions with a coach, whatever that is, that's what you're going to need to kind of get you to a place where you are a competitor. You are competing. You're not just kind of showing up. After you reach that level, now we go on to kind of the qualifying level. If you are somebody that wants to qualify in local events for the state or next level, an individual program and a coach to guide you becomes more of a necessity at this point. It's not really an option. Again, always outliers, but in general, you're probably not going to be the exception to the rule. And if you are, you might not be getting as far as you maybe could have. You're going to need that really planned out season like we talked about. We're going to talk about how to structure your qualifying meets so that you have the time to prepare for what you qualified for. And it's always helpful to have a coach on your side when competitions aren't going the way you planned. I know this from personal experience. If you're super in your head about something in the middle of a competition, your coach can correct and strategize without the emotion that you're feeling. Your judgment is not going to be the best at that point. Say something is hurting or say something went wrong that was supposed to go really well. It's a lot easier for your coach to look at the entire picture and figure out where we can correct, where we can fix. You are probably going to be a little bit too emotionally involved to make the best decision in the middle of those times. So I really recommend it. If for nothing else, that has been one of the most helpful things on my end that I've experienced. With that, I also recommend at this point a nutrition, lifestyle, something to that effect coach. This is where the small things start to matter. You're not at the very top. It's not like every 0.5% of every single thing you do is going to be the difference between winning or not. However, the small things start to matter a lot more here. If you generally have a solid diet, maybe you just consult with somebody once in a while to troubleshoot. If you are somebody that you're super stressed out all the time, or your sleep is trash, or you don't really know too much about nutrition, especially for your sport in particular, you want to make sure that someone's in your corner keeping an eye on things. Maybe you need more attention and you need to work with a nutrition coach one-on-one and check in every single week. Maybe you just need someone to look over all your shit and tell you where you need to fix things. That's going to be up to you. And I know a lot of people that listen are CrossFitters or strength athletes. So this is sort of the equivalent of, the quarterfinals of CrossFit. It's top 10%. It's not the craziest thing to make top 10% ever. You can do it, and still there are people that I'm sure are drinking every single weekend that are in the top 10%. They slip through. But for most people, if you want to be at this level, you are going to have to hone in a little bit. And my best advice for this is to take a really solid look at yourself and figure out what you suck the most at. You suck at something. I promise. We all suck at something. And the sooner you figure out what you suck at, the sooner you can fix it. Then after we get past the qualifying level, we're talking top level competitions, right? So national level or beyond. Maybe you want to go to the Olympics, whatever it is. After the national level, that level and beyond, you're going to need a coach with a lot of experience. You also need the right coach for the job. And I say this from experience. For me, I'm not the best elite level coach unless they just need accountability and direction and they're generally pretty good on their own. I am not going to go in and try to correct an elite athlete's really big issues because unfortunately, that's just not really my coaching style. I'm a little softer. I'm not naturally crazy hard on clients. I like to kind of reassess and strategize and okay, like why did you feel that way? Like maybe we can adjust this. How do you feel about that? At a very elite level, that's not really helpful. They need someone that can keep them in line. So when athletes come and they have really big issues that they need addressing and they're having a really hard time, sticking with the plan, I'm probably not the best person for them. And I'm totally okay with that. I know this about my coaching now, but when I was working with people trying to be the best in the world, I had to really work on my tough love. And I did pull it out, but it's not naturally where I default. I tend to steer away from those types of really, really, really serious athletes. If your salary is dependent on your performance, I'm probably not going to be the best person for you. You need to find the person that is going to handle those things correctly, especially if you are making an income, if you have limited amounts of time, whatever it is, if something really big is riding on this, you need someone that's going to take it to the same level that you are trying to be at. And with that, you should look for coaches that have coached people at the level you're looking to compete at or beyond. If you are trying to go to the Olympics, use the biggest example, right? You don't want someone that's never even coached at the national level. Maybe there is a national level coach that has coached nationally, but they have never been to the next level. You've heard really good things. You make the decision that they are still good. You want to go with them. That's fine. But I would not pick someone who's a year into CrossFit to try to bring me to the games. If a coach is worth their salt, they're going to have athletes to prove it. They're going to be able to say, these are the people I worked with. These are the results I got. This is why you should work with me. If they can't produce those things, it may not be the best idea to go with them. This also sort of ties into how I used to feel when I would coach these really, really elite athletes. I very much so had the knowledge of what these people needed to do, the mistakes they were making, and what they should be doing instead. It wasn't that I didn't have the knowledge. I just don't have the persona that tends to accompany that sort of coach. Because of that, that's the disconnect. You need to have both, and they are very different. So keep that in mind as well if you're really trying to scope out a coach to take you to a very, very high level. They have to be compatible with you. If you do not like a coach that screams at you, someone screaming at all their athletes is probably not the person you want to go to first. They need to have the knowledge. They need to know what to do to help you. Again, this is a bottom line thing, but all of these aspects are important. And with that, those two things need to come together and create a coaching persona that matches your responsiveness to intensity, but also pushes you. Because if you're working at this level, there's no time for messing around. You got to get your shit done. You need someone that's going to tell you that you need to get your shit done and there's no way around it. If you want to compete and stay at this level, my suggestion for coaching is to have somebody focusing on your training, somebody focusing on your nutrition, and cutting out anything that's a distraction. And that sounds really harsh, but a lot of things in our lives are just distractions. When I was competing this national level, right, I pissed a lot of people off and I lost a lot of friends. I was fine with that. And I still am. I'm completely fine with it because it was very telling and I'm good. But you have to be prepared for that. I don't really think I was. I don't know that I was shocked, but I don't think I fully understood what people meant when they said these types of things. People will fall off. They won't come along for the ride. Do you need these people? No, you don't. But if you're someone that's really sensitive to that type of thing, you may want to take that into consideration. Are your friends going to freak out if you don't go out with them, Saturday nights? Are they going to push you to be really, really drunk when you know that you have to train the next day? If you have friends that are chill and they don't care, I have my few that I love so, so dearly. They knew what I needed to do. They knew when I was in Maine and I was a week out from nationals that I was not about to go and eat pier fries and all of these pizzas and whatever because I had to make weight. And they were all good with that. No one gave me shit. That's important. It wears on you after a while. Keep people around you that are not just going to be a distraction, but also that you don't want them to be negative people either, because no one wants to hear that all the time. It gets old. I haven't competed again or been back to this level since really diving into my career and trying to produce as much as I can within the gym space, within the nutrition space, because I can't prioritize both. Now, I'm really lucky and I have plenty of clients and I'm in a more comfortable place. So I hope to get back on the platform soon, but the timing wouldn't have worked. Recognizing that is half the battle. Sometimes you have to admit to yourself that you do have things that are more important, and that might not be the case forever, but you need to assess, kind of look around, see what's going on. What is actually important to you? What would have to happen for you to drop everything, screw your workout for the day and be out? Is it your kid getting sick? Is it, your job? Whatever it is, you have to understand how that is going to play a role and not pretend that it won't. I also want to get just a little bit more specific at this level. Each sport is also going to require certain things at this level, and it can be monetarily draining. I wish I kind of knew that before I really got deep into it because it was a big chunk of change. Let's say for bodybuilding, you're going to need your person to write your program. You're also going to need your nutritionist. But on top of that, you're going to need a posing coach. You're going to need somebody to do your hair, your makeup, your tan, and you're likely going to need coaches to go to the show with you as well and help you peak and all of that good stuff. For strength sports, especially for weightlifting, which is where I have my experience, there's a lot of strategy backstage. And I think I would have actually passed away had I had to pull my own cards, mess with the numbers, and get out and go lift. Rob being backstage playing chess with my numbers and when I was going to lift and how I was going to get the best placement so I could just go and focus on what I needed to do, which was lift the barbell over my head. I don't know that I could have done both. You may really need that person, and I think most people do. You shouldn't have to play mind games while you're competing. For CrossFit, the time requirement of training can be extreme. At the highest level, a lot of athletes are training 6 to 8 hours per day. And yes, are they going in a full Metcon that entire time? No, absolutely not. But it might be, an 8 to 10 hour block of time that they need to chunk out of each day for training. That's a lot of food. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of energy put into something if it isn't your top priority. Most people work. Some people don't even work for that long every day. So put that in perspective a little bit if this is something you really want to do. A lot of times the biggest barriers, aside from the actual level that you're at, is the monetary or the time commitment to these things. If you're in a position where you can be supported to dive all in, it's going to be easier. And that's just the way it is. Some people are more privileged than others. That's amazing. If your dad can pay for your life and you want to really go for it in a sport, amazing. If your mom's going to pay your rent, amazing. Whatever it is, that's great. But if you don't have those things, you do have to assess. At the time that I competed, I was broke. We had just opened the gym. I was nowhere near as stable as I am now. I did not have the money to go to compete. When the competition I figured out was in Philly, I was so set on going and I saved, and it was a huge investment. I think the weekend cost me $1,500. And keep in mind, I do not pay for a coach. I do not pay for a gym membership, and the singlet I have was gifted to me. So I paid for my weightlifting shoes, the hotel, and my entry fees, and that's it. And it still cost me that much money. Keep that in mind. I had a gym at my disposal for free and a coach and all of that. Those things are going to add a big chunk of change to this total. With that, I also worked in the gym. So I was already in the place that I needed to train most of my day anyway. For you, maybe you have plenty of money. You're not broke at all. You're totally good there, but you have a really demanding job or a family. Figuring out your obstacles and how you're going to deal with them before you really dive in can prevent a lot of heartbreak. I would have been damned if I did not get up on that stage, but it was a hell of a ride to get there. And it really wasn't anything to do with the training. It was all of the other circumstances. Really take a good look at everything. Decide what level you really want to be at. Figure out what that's going to cost you, not just monetarily, but otherwise. Assess. What's your plan to get there? What are you going to do if X, Y, or Z happens? What if, whatever happens? You need to be prepared for all of these things because I think people dive in a lot of the times with having no clue. It's really heartbreaking to put that much work in and not quite make the mark, especially when it has nothing to do with your actual skill level. That's sort of my take on this. I know this was kind of rambly, but I hope it was helpful. I get this question a lot. And then I only have a few questions from an Instagram Q&A that I want to answer. I only got like 5 or 6. I want to go through these really quickly. And my first question was supplements that you truly need? Question mark. This is a good one. I will eventually do an episode on supplements. I think it's so funny, the obsession with supplements in the fitness industry. Basic answer, creatine, one of the most proven supplements out there. It has basically no side effects. It is proven to do all of the things it claims to do, which is weirdly an anomaly. There's really no downside to it. Little note on that, the loading phase that was kind of old school bodybuilding days, you do not need to do a loading phase with creatine, about 5 grams a day, put it in your water, you're all good. Then on top of that, we have protein, which I always include this, but I don't really know if it counts as a supplement. It's protein, it's milk, it's whey. Protein shakes are amazing if you suck at reaching your protein goal. Done. Nothing else to say about it there. Get a good quality one so you're not just putting trash into your body. Then these two, I say that most people, especially in the New England area or anybody that lives where it's really cold, vitamin D, most people are not going to be super high on vitamin D. Fish oil is another one that I think most people are going to do fine with. That being said, I think those are the ones that I don't really mind people taking as long as it makes sense for their situation without a blood test. For any other supplementation, even a multivitamin, I really suggest going to get a blood panel done. It's not hard. It's an afternoon and it's going to tell you a lot about yourself and what you may need. I do not tell clients to take any sort of supplementation until I have a blood test in front of me and their doctor has told them what they are deficient in. Then at that point, you can start to, okay, experiment with this. How did that work? Okay, now your levels are normal. Great. But without a blood test, you're taking a shot in the dark and that's not really a great way to approach your health. It's kind of serious. Make sure you're not just throwing shit into your body. There's no reason to. Some, basics there. Skinny teas don't work. It's the same thing as a laxative. If you want to shit your pants, you can just go buy that at CVS. If you are sold something that has a timestamp promise on it with a big asterisk next to it, obviously, it's bullshit. You're not going to lose 10 pounds in 10 days or any of that crazy shit that you see. Supplements are not FDA regulated. That means that they can pretty much say whatever they want on the label. Everything is called a proprietary blend on the label. That just means there's a bunch of shit in there that they didn't want to label. Beware of that. Buy high quality supplements. I recommend Thorne. That's what I take. They're third party tested. You know what you're getting. It makes it a lot more simple. Next question. So this was actually from one of the coaches I used to work with at the Method, and she's a sweetheart. So how do you deal with clients that are dishonest during check-ins and then ask why it isn't working? This question made me laugh. So I want to start by saying I really am lucky at this point. I don't really work with anybody that I don't gel with. And that sounds bad, but I have enough clients at this point that if me and someone are not getting along or I don't think that this is the thing for them, I have absolutely no problem telling them to move on. I try to point them in the best direction possible, but I don't stress over it too much anymore. When I did deal with it, when I really needed kind of every client I could get and I was trying my best to make it work with anybody, this is what I did. I let it go for a week or two. Some people have a bad week. They don't really want to disclose all the details. Life happens and that's so normal. Like you're like, not a great week, whatever. Maybe they tell you everything was fine, but it's very clear it wasn't. Whatever it is, it's fine for a very acute period of time. If this is something that is going on and it's chronic and it's every single week you're reading their check-in, you're you're like, this is bullshit. Like, this is absolutely not true. I would approach it from a sense of curiosity rather than accusation. This can seem a little manipulative the way I'm about to say it, but I think it helps both parties. What I would say is, hey, so, the numbers aren't quite adding up, and I want to make sure that my software isn't screwing up, or maybe you're forgetting to put something in because, scientifically, this should be working out this way, and unfortunately, this is what I'm seeing. So I'm trying to figure out what isn't adding up. Have you noticed anything weird? Did you forget to put anything in? I just want to make sure I have all my information correct. When you come at it from that direction, it gives them the opening to be like, oh, well, I kind of was forgetting to log this, and then I had a few drinks, I didn't log those, and you do not have to really go into it after that. You can be like, oh, okay, that makes so much sense. Thank you so much for telling me. Okay, I'm going to put this information in and let me know if anything else like that happens because we'll address it next week. Done. They now feel a little bit more comfortable with you. You didn't lose a client, and they're probably a little bit more likely to be honest with you. If at that point that conversation does not help and you still suspect that this is massively bullshit, I would then go to that client and say, look, I don't know that I am the best person to help you. Unfortunately, a lot of things aren't adding up on my end, and I'm still not fully understanding why. I think you may be better off seeing, X, Y, or Z if you have specific recommendations for them. If you don't, I think you may be better off finding a coach that can figure these things out for you. If you need anything in the meantime, please let me know, but I will refund you for the rest of the month. I appreciate working with you. Bye-bye. It doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to attack them. You don't have to accuse them of anything. Say your piece, be done, and maintain your reputation. Maintain your integrity as a coach. It's not your fault. And it's also not a reflection of you. With that, you also have to have compassion that if they're feeling the need to lie about these things, something is off within them. And nutrition is a very emotional subject. This should spark a lot of empathy in you. And if you're feeling really angry at these clients, which I know can be common, really kind of think about what would drive a person to do that. It's a lot, right? There's got to be a lot going on there. You're probably not the person they need. They may need a therapist. They may need someone else. And that's totally okay. Next question is keto for somebody who is obese and doesn't care about performance. Okay, this is interesting. I like this. I definitely have had my views on keto. They haven't changed much. I think that most people going completely keto and trying to do CrossFit, because that is the main sport I deal with, it's just not conducive to performance for a glycolytic sport. And that's totally okay. However, if you have no performance goals and you are obese, you need a solution, and that's okay. And if keto is that solution, and if you're asking this because it's working for you or whatever it is, I think that's great. I think you should find what works for you. And if that's keto, wonderful. Few considerations. First, if you are a woman, carbohydrates are really, really helpful for our menstrual cycles. So if you start seeing hormonal issues, you may have to raise your carbohydrate intake a little bit, even if you don't go back to like a full carbohydrate intake. With that, you want to make sure that at the end of your weight loss or at the end of whatever phase of life you're in, you have a way to transition into something sustainable. If that's staying mostly keto, wonderful, amazing. If you find keto restrictive, even a little bit, it probably won't be a long-term solution. Some people can stick with it forever. They're totally good. That's great. But if that's not you, be realistic with yourself. Don't just lie and be like, no, I'll just stick with it forever. It's fine. Be realistic with yourself and have an exit plan of, okay, at the end of 6 months, I am going to raise my carbs by 5 grams a week until I reach X amount of carbs, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be that specific, but it does have to be a plan and it does have to be on a timeline. What you don't want is to lose all this weight, do all this work, put in all this effort, and because the method can be unsustainable for some people, you find that you're just bouncing back to where you were. That's worst case scenario. If it's a tool, great. You should have a long-term plan as well. The last question that I have for today is, what are Rob's hair care secrets? Rob's hair care secrets are barely brushing it, washing it with bar soap mixed with shampoo, and hoping for the best. And somehow his hair is thick, has tons of volume, it's way prettier than mine, and I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to go on that note. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.